A predominant fault is a defect in us that tends to prevail over all of our other defects, and thereby over our manner of feeling. In other words, it determines how we feel about things, our judging, sympathizing, willing, acting, everything. It tends to affect everything.
Today I'm going to be talking about what are the best resources, at least that I've found, for identifying and also helping to overcome your predominant fault. And so the first resource I want to recommend is this book. It is called The Handbook of Spiritual Perfection. And this book is great. And one of the priests on Sensus Fidelium recommended it. And so that's what I learned, how I learned about it. And so, for example, chapter 1 is about motivate yourself to grow in holiness. And I love that chapter, and it emphasizes why mental prayer is so important and so essential for growing in virtue and overcoming specific faults and sins that we keep committing. And he talks about why we keep falling into the same sins, and then he makes the case because we don't meditate on it. And then he gives 3 amazing points on how to motivate yourself to overcome it, because Father Dion mentions that we keep committing the same sins because we might admire that quality in someone else, but it doesn't mean that we're motivated to do it, that we haven't internalized that it would be good for us. So I really, really like this book. And then later on, like chapter 4, identify your predominant fault. And chapter 5, learn to root out your faults. And it goes on. And so this one is by Sophia Press. This is actually an abridged version of the original. So if you want to find the original, you can find it on archive.org, and you look for Basic Spiritual Means by Father Philip E. Dion. And I've been kind of reading both. I've been rereading the chapters because they're so good, and I feel like I can just learn so much. I have to review them. And so I've been looking at both of them. And so, for example, in chapter 1 of this book, there is an example that I thought was really good, that it was removed. But there are some benefits for getting the Sophia Press version, because the original was written for religious, and so that he'll address them in the book as religious, whereas here in the Sophia Press version, they've cut that out. But I actually don't mind it, but I can see why it just depends on what you're looking for. Okay, and so moving on to the second resource I have. So it is this chart, and it is from just an old traditional Catholic book that was recommended in Father Ripperger's book, Introduction to the Science of Mental Health. And so I was skimming through that, and I came across this chart, and I like it so much, but it was kind of blurry and pixelated because it's like this online digital version. So I am making it again in better resolution, and so I'm going to put that in the description below. I'm working on my website right now, so as soon as I have it ready, you'll find it there in the description. And just make sure to subscribe if that's something that you think you would like, because then I'll put out a post just to let everyone know when that's available. So let me show you a closer look, and here you can see that there's this choleric temperament, and then it shows favorable indications. So for example, great ambition, keen intellect. I know a few cholerics, and so they can have, they are great leaders, but then if you look at unfavorable indications, strong inclinations to pride and stubbornness, so, strong-willed. So it can be a good thing, but in excess, some bad qualities can come out. And then, if you look, there's predominant emotion and vice. And so it lists pride, anger, deceit, and then you go on and it says, and required virtue. So the virtues that offset that vice. So humility, meekness, simplicity. So this chart is amazing. It's so helpful. And so we can go on, like for the sanguines, they react quickly but not permanently to incentives. And their favorable indications or qualities, they're friendly, interesting, good mixer, willing to oblige, but then they can be superficial and tend to love pleasure and dread serious effort, and they're over talkative. And then the predominant emotions and vices are vanity, sensuality, envy, and so the required virtues to offset that is modesty, temperance. So I can make a video later on that goes more into detail about this. If you want that, let me know down in the comments. But this chart is really helpful for kind of helping you to figure out your temperament and therefore the vices and faults that you might fall into and struggle with the most, and also to know the virtues that come more easily, so you can at least like hold on to those and practice those, and those can like sustain you as you work on these the ones that you struggle with. It's very helpful to have along with this Father Ripperger virtue list, and I've shared this in another one of my videos if you already are subscribed. But if you're new here, so this list is great because Father Ripperger has this list. He says it's 64 virtues, and he also has opposing vices for each virtue. So you can just go down through this list. That's what I did, and just kind of first, like it's under prudence, and then you check off which ones you think that you struggle with more, and which vices you struggle with more, and then which virtues come more easily. And just having this list to go off of is really helpful, because I started noticing for me personally that actually like there were several under fortitude that I was struggling with more, whereas in justice a lot of those virtues came more easily. So then that can just kind of reinforce what the chart is saying about your temperament. And you know, it's just so important for us to know ourselves. And actually there's this great prayer by Saint Augustine. It's called Know Thyself. And so just knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and it also helps with humility to know yourself and your place before God and next to others, so we don't grow in pride, and we rely on God and His help. And I've been using it along, because I have this one's this virtue chart for children. I've also shared in other videos about this resource, but this kind of just helps me when I'm going through Father Ripperger's virtue list. I just kind of use them hand in hand. And last but not least, Father Ripperger recommends to pray to Our Lady of Sorrows to help you like discern what is your predominant fault, because it is not always easy. Okay, so nap time is over, so I'm going to wrap it up. But just as a quick recap, so there's that book by the Sophia Press, the Handbook of Spiritual Perfection, or if you're looking for the original, you can find it at archive.org. It's called Basic Spiritual Means by Father Philip Dion. Number 2 is the list I found in an old traditional Catholic book. I'm going to put it up on my website, and I'll link it down below in the description. Hopefully you'll find that helpful. I really like learning about the 4 temperaments. It's been life-changing. So I will just keep sharing resources as I find them. And definitely listen. Actually, I just remembered there's a Sensus Fidelium talk on the 4 temperaments and how they tie in to your predominant fault. And it summarizes a lot of this information. Definitely listen to that one. It's a 3-part series. And I'll try to make a little playlist and put it in the description too. And last but not least, Father Ripperger's virtue list. And I already have the Open Light Media Kids virtue list, so I use that. So that's helpful too. But the Father Ripperger virtue list is free online. So that does it. Don't forget the thumbs up, subscribe if you like this content, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Make sure, please, give it a thumbs up. That makes a huge difference in the YouTube algorithm, apparently. So if you want to help, I appreciate it.